Hi, my name is Steve Rahi. I am a premier field engineer specializing in management technologies. Today's discussion will focus on Current Branch, specifically the updates and servicing components of Current Branch, to really try to help understand how they work, what the differences are between a standalone primary and a hierarchy, and provide a bit of detail around the processes too. So here's the agenda. Really want to walk through the case for change. What was wrong that caused us to need to move toward a different kind of servicing model? Not even really what was wrong, but what were the opportunities that we could improve moving to a different way of servicing? What is the new update approach, the new update and servicing approach? Some of the key components that are involved, and then really want to walk through the process for a standalone primary site, then look at the process for a hierarchy. Just cover a couple of troubleshooting tips, nothing exhaustive there, but just cover a couple, and then we'll be done. Right. So in terms of the case for change, so we've been working for years in the ConfigMgr product to keep our systems, our installations up to date and up to speed with the latest service packs, with the latest cumulative updates, with perhaps hot fixes sometimes, and that process, while pretty well defined and comfortable for many organizations, time and labor intensive. There was a significant investment that needed to be made in order to get that kind of work done, right? And so that's uh, also leads toward a manual process. So there was no automated way to really do this. You could build perhaps your own automated pieces as a part of this, but it really was a manual process. Again, a well-defined manual process, but because it was manual, it really brought in the opportunity for inconsistency, some errors, just human errors in the process. One organization could actually approach this a little bit different than another. Most of us did it really well, but there were those cases where things got a little bit out of control, and there were challenges as a result. Right? Uh, the planning, the timing required for doing upgrading and so on really kind of worked to discourage keeping up to date on the various updates and so on that have been released. It was not uncommon to walk into an environment and have them still be at Service Pack 1 whenever we might already have progressed to Service Pack 2 with a couple of cumulative updates, right? Because of the timing, of the investment, of the challenges for upgrading. Even if upgrades were done, very often clients were left down level, right? So trying to upgrade all the clients and coordinate that and do it in a way that that was effective also was a lot of work. And so because of backwards compatibility, sometimes the choice was made to leave the clients at an older version because trying to move them forward was just too difficult, right? Okay, so what are some of the pieces of the new update approach? Well, one, right out the gate is there's automation here. So in ConfigMgr Current Branch, the update process, the upgrade process, is an automated thing. Now, automated in the way that it actually gets done once you pull the trigger. So nothing is going to trigger unless you tell it to. From the beginning, you have to be involved. But after that happens, there is automation that will make sure that the process just runs through seamlessly. Can we have problems? Yeah, it's technology. There's different environments and so on. It could be a few problems, but the actual process of going through this is automated. It's consistent. It's the same from environment to environment. Why? Because the code is what drives it, not humans, right? And so since it's written into the code how to do this, it's going to happen the same across every environment in the world, right? Having this kind of automated, consistent approach really lends itself toward keeping up with the cadence of updates. So part of the beauty of this new approach is because we are updating and iterating configuration managers so quickly, uh, this will help us keep up to date in those environments because now the challenge of doing so is lessened, right? Client version management is also something that we bring good coordination to in terms of the way we handle it. So whenever you do an upgrade, you'll see this in a minute, you have a choice. Do you want to directly upgrade your clients in production to the new client version and have them roll out, right? Or do you want to, kind of do a pilot phase and then move that to production and so on? Really up to you, and then we'll handle it however you ask us to. Another challenge that we've had historically is when we upgrade from one version to another, the config manager console should also be upgraded to be able to take advantage of some of the new features, some of the fixes, and so on. Very often, folks will forget that part, and the console stays down level, and then there's challenges that can happen, right? So, as part of this new update upgrade approach, you'll be notified when the console is out of date to go ahead and upgrade that console, right, to the newer version. All right. You have choices, right? So there is a component out there, the service connection point, which you'll see in a minute, that facilitates the download of new updates in the environment, right? Even including hot fixes or things of that nature, things that are needed in your environment. Okay. You can choose to do that automatically. Most environments probably will, but if you have a disconnected environment and you don't have access to the internet or don't want to access the internet, you can actually run that role in what's called an offline mode. Again, you'll see that in a minute. And then you will manually take those payloads, download them, bring them to the site, and that's the way they will get staged, right? Certainly a lot easier to let it happen automatically, but that's not a requirement. You can absolutely run it manually. Another aspect of this, right? So we have the concept of rolling versus baseline updates. So starting with version 15.11 of Current Branch, that was our first baseline release of Current Branch. What we're going to be doing here in this session is upgrading a site from version 15.11 to 16.02. 16.02 is not a baseline release, which means in order to install that version, you have to start from 15.11. You cannot install 16.02 directly, with one big asterisk, right? That will come clear a little bit later. But assuming you have an existing installation of 15.11, you have to use the inbuilt upgrade or update mechanisms to move from 15.11 to 16.02. That is not sustainable over time. So looking 3 years down the line, we don't want to require customers to start at 15.11 even 3 years down the line when we're already at version 18.04 or whatever we're at that time, right? So there will be roughly every year a new baseline version of Config Manager released, which means you can install to that version of Config Manager directly, right? So and then you'll have to iterate with those rolling updates between baseline versions. So each version of Config Manager is going to be supported for a year. So 15.11, if you're on 15.11, then you will be supported on 15.11 through November of 2016, as an example. If you're on 16.02, then you will be supported on that version until February of 2017, right? So each one has a year. That is there uh, to allow you know organizations to choose not to have to go to every single version. If there's a couple of versions that are released and the pieces don't really apply to your environment, you don't really need those functions or whatever, then you can opt to stay where you are, right? So completely up to you how you want to do that. All right, some additional details around this. So um, one thing that was required just to call out in 15.11, right? So in the updates in servicing node, you will see the upgrade from 15.11 to 16.02. There was a delay. If you have 15.11 installed, there was a delay in having the 16.02 upgrade show up in the console, right? There was a PowerShell script that the product group published that you could run to cause that upgrade to show up quickly, and then you can go ahead and apply it. Past 15.11, that PowerShell script is no longer necessary, so those delays were removed, and the PowerShell script is just an artifact at this point of 1511. You shouldn't have that issue any longer going forward. All right. Now, in terms of key components, right? The key component, a key component, is the service connection point. So this is a site system role that is responsible for handling all of the communication with the internet and so on to pull down various pieces. There are really about three things that this particular role does. So prior to Current Branch, this role actually was there. It was called the Intune connector. Now that role, the Intune connector, has gone away. The service connection point actually replaces that and has some additional functionality. So since this was called the Intune connector, then obviously this role is used in managing mobile devices as they connect with Microsoft Intune and so on, right? It's also used to manage mobile devices if you choose to implement MDM on-prem completely without having to have the Intune cloud instance. You can manage Windows 10 anyway with MDM completely on-prem. This role is key to helping with that. Also, uploading usage data about your config manager infrastructure and so on is a very key thing that this role will do. There are different levels of data that can be uploaded. You can choose which one makes most sense, right? We use this data called telemetry data to help understand your environment, give you the updates, the upgrades that make sense to you, right? This role also is key in downloading the updates, the upgrades that apply to your config manager infrastructure. So let me pull in my lab real quick and we'll take a look specifically at that. All right. All right, so we'll take a couple of tangents off of here as we talk about the service connection point because uh, since we're talking about it, may as well cover them. Not specifically all of these related to the upgrade process, but certainly key for the the role here. Oops, I must have typed my password in wrong. Try it again. There we go. Okay, so the service connection point is a site system role. So if I go to administration and look under site configuration and then servers and site system roles here on my server, you will see that I have the service connection point installed, right? Well, if I double click on it, go to properties, you will see that there are really two modes of operation. Online, this is where we expect to have an internet connection. It's something we will, or the role will actually go out every 24 hours and check for different upgrades, updates, and so on. You can also run the role offline. So if you run, and I've never really tried to run this role offline, most organizations probably won't. But if you are in an offline mode, there is a special tool that you need to use called the Service Connection tool to interact with our cloud services to pull down detail and so on, right? Now, if you did want to use the offline mode for the service connection point, that's actually pretty easy to do. Again, I've not done it, but just to show you on the install media for Config Manager under SMS Setup and then under Tools, there is the service connection tool. And so you can run this. As you run the service connection tool, and there's good documentation again out there on TechNet, but as you run the service connection tool, it's going to ask you to upload your usage data, and then it's going to make available to you the upgrades, right, the updates, and so on. So you can't have one without the other. Online makes it easier. Offline, through the service connection tool, it will work. Now, in terms of what kind of detail is provided whenever you do submit up the telemetry data. A couple of things that I will show you here real quick. First, you can set the level of detail. There is the default, which you'll see in a minute. It took me a little bit to poke around the console until I finally realized where this was. If you go to the top left and go to usage data, then you will see the choices, right? So basic or enhanced or full. Now, if if this detailed write-up is not enough for you to know what kind of data will actually be collected and sent, you can go to the URL or to the link here, which will talk about our privacy collection policies and different things. And then from here, you can also get to additional detail. So let me open this up wider, scroll down a bit, trying to scroll down a bit. Okay, so levels. It looks like my system's hanging for just a second. Let's see. Okay, good. Now it's responding. So if I scroll down, here's this link. It's also on the left. Levels of diagnostic usage data collected. If you scroll down, you'll see basic and all the detail that's here, enhanced, all the detail that's here, and then finally full, and so on. So if that is of interest to you, knowing more detail beyond what's in just the UI here, then go there, right? But this is where you set what will be collected. Now, if you also want to see in the database what has been collected. Again, this is just to show you where it is more than anything. You can go into the telemetry table. So this site right now is version 1511, build number 8325, and the place where we store the telemetry data in the database is different in 1511 than it will be going forward. So let me just do the query here. I'll show it to you. Select star from, and let's make sure we have the right database selected. Telemetry. All right, and that should execute, and indeed we have some detail here. Probably not all that exciting to look at it, just kind of gives you an idea of what kind of detail is going forward. If you are past 1511 and want to look at the same information, it would be select star from tel underscore telemetry results. Right, so that doesn't translate to anything in 1511, but it will in 1602 forward, right? So just FYI, in case that kind of detail is interesting to you, right? Okay, so now that we've looked at that, what I want to do is go ahead and, well, before I kick off the install. Let me pull this back out for just a second. So that's the service connection point. Now, in addition to that, a few key components here. Configuration Manager Update Service, right? So that is a new service added in Current Branch that controls the or manages the updates, upgrades, whatever. So if I just go to services.msc, oops, I must have typed that wrong. There it is. All right, and just open that up. Right on the front page, you will see this new service. So it's the Configuration Manager Update service. It's running. This is, again, what will manage that process going out and downloading the content and all of that kind of thing, right? Now, there's some interesting registry detail around this service. So if I just pop open regedit, it probably won't have anything in it right now. Hopefully it won't. But at least you'll see where the detail's stored. And then I close down this registry key. This is CCM logging, and then I'll close this down. Oops, close that down. Close this down. If I go in down to SMS, then expand that out, we will be able to go into the components key, and then go into the site component manager key, and then under component servers, we can see our site server, expand that out, and then we will see components. And finally, we get to the Configuration Manager Update service. And so this is interesting on a couple of levels if we get down here. So notice files containing entry point, files required in the SMS installation directory, files required in the Windows directory, files to delete. So this is good detail to know if you're troubleshooting, if there's something going on, if you just want to check on things, you can know pretty easily what things should be there, right? Now, you can tell on 1511 that this service is already installed. What you'll find when we run the prereq check is that this service will be installed, validated as a part of doing that prereq check as well, right? So we'll see that in just a minute. So continuing on with our exploration of things, so the file system certainly has some key components to it that I want to explain. Not all of them will be here until we actually start the upgrade, but we can look at the ones that are. And so if I go into the file system and let's see, go to the program files and then config manager, and then finally look at the file system. So I'll start with client. Actually, I can start with cd.latest, but I'll start with client, right? So there are a number of folders here that you will recognize. There are a number of folders here that will be new. And so client, the client folder, is where we store the source files for our production client. That should be pretty familiar, right? Well, other folders in here would be client upgrade. So the client upgrade folder, this is just a staging area. It's really ignored, if you will, during the update pack installation process. It's really acted upon by Hierarchy Manager component after the install is completed to do what it needs to do to move some things around. But if we look in here, we do have a CCM setup exe file in here. So, but not a lot of activity will happen here, certainly not during the upgrade. There's a CMU staging folder. Now the CMU staging is a location where we will stage new binaries, new client binaries. So you can see just by GUID. And if we go into it, some of the language specific details and so on, right? So this isn't probably a place to play around a ton, but you will see some stuff in here related to the client and used that way. So just scrolling on down the list, we also have, there's a few more. Let's see, piloting upgrade, that is not here yet. It is part of what kind of decisions you will make whenever you do the upgrade in terms of the way you want to handle the client. So I'll loop back to that and show you whenever that's done. And then there's staging client, which is also not here, but it will be, and that is going to be the source folder for client pilot files. So again, that'll make more sense as I show it to you later. Two other key folders that are here. So cd.latest, right? cd.latest is a place that contains what looks very much like source files, and in fact, they are. So this stores the source files for the current version of the site. So if I launch Splash HTA, you will see it is version 1511, which is what is currently installed. Before I haven't done the upgrade yet, so it's that's what's currently installed. Oops, I think I closed the folder, didn't I? Yep, I did. Let me get. No, I didn't. Let me get back to it. All right. So if I look at that again, source files. So one would think that you could use these source files to directly install another site, and that is partially true, but largely something to watch out for. So let me be very specific. So these files that are in the cd.latest folder are very much supported to use them for site recoveries in case you need to do that. Also, if you're building a brand new hierarchy and you have your CAS and then you're trying to build your primary sites off of your CAS, then you can use these source files to install a brand new primary site, right? No problem there. It is not supported to use the cd.latest files. Maybe another site exists somewhere, another server exists somewhere. Not supported to use these files to install the first site in your hierarchy. It's also not supported to use these files to upgrade a site. So let's walk through these scenarios for a minute. So let's say that you have an existing hierarchy that's at 1511 and you want to upgrade your CAS to 1602 or whatever version you choose, 1602 in this scenario. And then instead of having to go through the upgrade process at your primaries using the automated mechanism, you think, hey, I'll just use these cd.latest files to kick off the upgrade on my child primaries or my secondaries. And that's a very reasonable thought. It is also completely unsupported. There can be challenges that you would run into as a result of doing that. Right now, what is supported, and I've seen customers do, is maybe you're building a brand new hierarchy. Maybe you'll have a CAS and 3 primary sites, right? And so you install your CAS and you install it at 1511 because that's a baseline build, and then you upgrade it to 1602, right? And you're thinking, well, so can I just use these files that are already at 1602 to install the primary site so that I don't have to worry about waiting and installing those from 1511 and then having to upgrade them and so on? And the answer is absolutely. That scenario is supported for using the cd.latest files, right? Hope that makes sense. So backing up a level here, we also have the easy setup payload. So this this folder is used to store the source files that will be used for an upgrade. So you notice this is version 1602. So the site is running 1511. These files are for 1602. That's what we have available to actually do the upgrade, right? Okay, so, and let's see, log files, I just have highlighted a few of those here before we get going that are key. During the upgrade process, there's log files for prerequisite checking, admin UI setup, general config manager setup that we can look at, uh, several different logs, just standard config manager site logs that we can look at for driving the upgrade, tracking the upgrade, right? So let's flip forward and look at specifically the process for a standalone primary site. And then we're going to show you just a little bit of additional stuff around the hierarchy and how that works. So with the standalone primary site, we have our primary site server, and we have all of the logs again referenced that will be probably key in the process of doing the update. We have the service connection point. Now I'm showing this as a separate site system. It doesn't have to be, it could be on this server, but just for clarity's sake, DMP downloader is a component that will actually run, retrieve the files from the cloud, from our servers, and pull them down and make them available in that easy setup payload folder, right? So that you can actually do the upgrade. So the DMP downloader in my site was long ago overwritten, so I just went and grabbed one from my hierarchy where I did an upgrade that you'll see in just a minute, and have them here. So let me just show you in the training folder the downloading of updates. Not going to spend a ton of time here, just to slide on through this a little bit and show you the logging and the fact it's checking and the easy setup payload and different things. You can track it pretty easily here, right? So we're going to go out and check at least once every 24 hours, and then download anything that we need onto the system. Again, assuming that your service connection point is running in full automatic mode or online mode, if you will. Right. So let's pull this aside, and what I'm going to do is go into the site, and I'm going to kick off the prerequisite check. Okay. So if I go to the console and then go to administration and such, go here and then to cloud services and then to updates and servicing. I can go through, this is available, it's the 1602 upgrade, so I can go through this and just right click. I could go ahead and install it if I wanted to. Maybe in my lab I would do that, probably wouldn't do that in production, shouldn't do that in production. But here I will run just a prerequisite check, right? Nothing huge about this, it'll just kick off. You see that it changed status to checking prerequisites, right? And we can also see that in monitoring node. Here, there probably won't be anything here quite yet under the site servicing status because it does have a lag of a few minutes before things kick in. So I'm actually through the magic of uh, snapshots and checkpoints and so on and virtual machines. I'm going to actually restore this site to just after the prerequisite check has completed, and then we will take a look at it. All right, and so I have the checkpoint restored. Let's log into it. This should be after the prereq check is done, and so we will just take a look at a couple of things. So back under monitoring, if we look there, we see now the prereq check has passed. If we right-click, we can look at the status, and you'll see the various prereq checks that were done. Scroll up and down, but notice at the very end, or sorry, at the very end, we did the install, made sure that uh, the uh, site system role was actually there. The update service, right? Sorry, the update service got distracted for a second. Was there. So because that is a key role, as we go through, right? So you can see all the details here. If you have any challenges, pretty easy to pinpoint what they are. Also, we have the logging that we can check in on, right? So let's just kind of walk through again with some of the logs that I've captured already over here, the logs that might be a little bit relevant to prerequisite checking. So we'll just kind of start in order. The SMS prov log is one that will track any kind of activity in the console. So this would be as I'm clicking around, as I'm initiating the update, as I'm checking the status of the update, or as the system is checking it to make sure that the console is reflecting accurately, right? There's a lot of activity. So these logs anytime you look at the logs, it's a good idea, especially if you're trying to track a process, to figure out what time that process actually started. And then you can use that as a starting point for looking at the log. So in my case, I kicked off the prerequisite check when I captured these logs at 8:25 and 30 seconds. So I know right around here, probably a little bit before, right in this area, this split is where I had done that. In my site, just a lab system. It's pretty easy to track. So I'm not going to walk through this line by line. I'll show you the length of the amount of logging. It's a decent amount of logging. There's really three functions. There's more for sure, but just three functions that I will show you to kind of illustrate kind of what's going on. So update packages. I'll just let that be it. So CM update packages is a function that we call to list out the different update packages that are available. So those things that are under easy setup payload and such that we know about that are in the database and we've discovered through using our update service, we will list out to you so you can kick things off. Also, update package site status. So this is going to go back and retrieve another function to retrieve site status as we roll along. If you go through this and search for this a few times, you would actually find it multiple times in here. I'll just do a find next to show you. Yeah, it's there several times. And then also FN list update package detailed site status. All right, so that's there too. And so anyway, not to get too far off in the weeds, but just to show you, kind of some of the tracking you can do. Distribution Manager is also involved. So if you were to go dig into these package IDs, the PS10006 Delta, this is actually a client install or a package for client source. This is not something that I did. It's something that the site did to kick that off and replicate it down to the distribution point so that when it comes time to upgrade the clients, that source is available, right? The client stuff really happens whenever you install the site, so don't spend too much time here, but just showing the activity in the distribution manager log as we work through. Then we have the CM update log. So this log is most relevant whenever we actually do the update. But at least here, again, following back to our timestamp all the way to the top, we started at 8:25 and 30 seconds. However, we see activity at 8:31, so there was a good 6-minute gap here as we go along. So detected change, looking at the staging folder, you can go down and you can see here that we're doing a pre-rec scan. In fact, let me search for it so I can find it easier. There we go. So preparing pre-rec check for site server, and then we're expanding or validating the hash, and on we go, right? So not a ton here, but at least it's part of the process. The ultimate end is going to be looking at the ConfigMgr pre-rec log, which details out what happened. This is probably easier to look at just mirroring the console where I showed you up here, right? Show status. So there we go, right? So just looking at the different things. If we look at our administration node, then you can see that prereq checking has indeed passed, right? So the next step will be to actually run the install of the update pack. So there's a couple of things here. First screen, what what changes this version includes. Next screen, which ones of these features I want to add. Now you don't have to add all of them. If some of these you don't want right at the moment, you can take them off, right? They'll go into the features list. I'll show you that in just a minute. You can turn them on or off later. Click next on that. Here's where we're going to decide what we want to do on our client, right? Do we want to upgrade it without any kind of validation or whatever? So what that means is the production client folder would get updated with the 1602, in this case, client files if we choose to do that, and then all of the clients installed from that point would in fact be 1602 clients. Or you can choose to validate in a pre-production collection, vet it out first, and then shift it over to production later. So that's what I will do here. Okay, I'll just say Windows 10 Systems and click Next and do the terms and conditions or accept the license terms and click Next. And then off we go. And so the upgrade is going to initiate, right? And it's running here. So through the magic again of virtualization and being able to move to snapshots, I will go back and restore to after the upgrade has been done. So I will do that and pause and be right back. All right, and so logging back in, this will be after the update has applied. Show a couple of things here. So I mentioned as I was going through the wizard, I didn't choose all of the features that were out there. I mentioned that you could go back and choose them later. And you can, right? So I want to, as soon as this comes up, launch the console and go back to the features list and show you how those two are there. In fact, they just aren't enabled, right? So if I go to features, here's the full list. I had not chosen to accept the iOS pieces, so they are not enabled, right? I can right click and turn them on, no problem, but be careful, right? To only enable the ones that you want, because once they're enabled, you can't turn them off, right? There's no at least on these, availability to disable them. But you can always enable them from a disabled state, right? So just wanted to make sure we show that. Okay, so updates and servicing. Looking at the results, ConfigMgr 1602 is installed. 1602 hotfix now shows up as being available. You can install the hotfix in the same way that you install the 1602 update, right? Same engine, same mechanism. In fact, that's the update that I installed in my hierarchy, which I'll show you in a minute. There's a reason for that, and I'll explain that too, right? If we go to our monitoring node, then we can see the site servicing status, and same deal, show status. We can see all of the install stuff that was done now. So it just kind of builds on itself and such. All right, so working through the logs, let's pull those in again. Okay, so the upgrade install, these are ones that I've copied off again just so I can have them here and know what time to look at different things. So I'm going to start with the smsprov.log again. Well, I won't go into it and make you look at that because really this is just showing you the kickoff of the install in the console. The really key log here is CM update, right? So if you look at the CM update log, you see that I have 3. The reason that I have 3 is because the transaction that is recorded takes longer, I'm sorry, takes more space than is allocated in the default log size, and so the logs roll over. So I wanted to be able to show you from the beginning and then track through to the end. Lots of logging here, won't go at all line by line just to show you that it's here. So if I look at CM update log, again, these logs where I started tracking, I deleted these and so on just to get a fresh set. But we started at 12, I kicked it off at 12:44:30 in the console. You see that it didn't actually start until 12:48. There was some delay as provider was getting things ready and some other things were running, but we did kick it off. So we're running against 15:11, or if you're using the 15:12 technical preview, it would log the same, and then we just start to roll through. And you can see us extracting, processing, doing some SQL stuff, creating inboxes, putting table indexes out there, objects, and so on. So again, I'm not going to run through this whole thing. What I will call out is that this process to do the install, again, takes a bit, but you might see in different places that the process looks like it hangs up for a second. Let me see if I can find an example of that, right? So yeah, here's one. So we had like well, that's not exactly a good example. You'll see places in here that we kind of hung for, 5 minutes, sometimes 6 minutes. Here's, just rolling through. This is a very small lab, right? The work that needs to be done in my database is a lot, same as yours, but it's a much smaller database than what you would find in production. The point being, you might see long periods of pause in here that are really not significant, not to be alarmed about. It's just processing sometimes takes a while. There's one that I recall about updating the license tables and license lookup tables or something. I can't remember exactly, but it took a bit of a hang until that finally moved forward, but it did, right? And so we run through these. Here's the next login line. Won't really go through that. Here's the historical log. Open that up, scroll to the bottom, and we see basically that the process has finished. How do we know that? Because we're cleaning up or we're dealing with some version checks and so on. And then finally we just say, hey, oops, I opened the wrong one. This is the current one, my bad. Roll on through, and then we say, okay, waiting for changes. Waiting for changes basically means we're done, right? It's complete, okay? So good thing to be able to look at. Okay, so now as a part of doing the install, we also made those adjustments to the client that we triggered in the wizard as we kicked off the update. So let's kind of take a look back at our folders and see what they have in them. Again, there's the production client, there's the piloting client. We chose to do some piloting, and so let's look at the logs. Or absolutely, sorry, not the logs. Let's go back to the key folder level. So some of those things I told you were not there, I showed you were not there. Now they are here. So let's just call them out. So here's my client folder. Because I selected to do the piloting, the version of the client here is still 8325. That's 1511. So we haven't touched the production client, right? But what we have done is now we have the CMU staging. Oops, sorry, we had that before. This one, CMU client, right? And this has the again, kind of an interim client source path that we use during the update install. If I go to properties on here, you would expect to see that this client is actually 1602. It is 8355. So this is the result of the upgrade pack being installed. So if we scroll on down, we selected to do piloting of the update. So we have now the piloting upgrade folder, right, and so on. So just to see those extra pieces come in line. So we also, now that we're on 1602, the 1602 hotfix is available to us. So you can see in the easy setup payload that we've added a second folder, right, and so on. Okay, and then just to again show, the cd.latest again is going to reflect the latest, or it's going to contain the files that are matching the version of the site that's installed. So we saw prior to the upgrade, cd latest contained 1511. Now if we launch it, it is 1602. So we can do that validation just to show that the upgrade completed and worked okay. All right. Okay. Now, kind of thinking about the client now a little bit more. So now that we have the client actually out there and ready to go forward into production, right, we need to trigger that to happen. All right. Before we do that, though, there are some other settings that we might want to consider. They're not exactly part of the kind of upgrade process, but pretty important. So if we go to administration, and then we go to sites or site configuration, then go to our sites, we can go up to hierarchy settings, and then here's where we decide what we want to do around client upgrade. The production client version you see is still 1511. Here's the pre-production client version, which matches the site 1602. This is carried forward from the upgrade portion, right? Some decisions about deployment of the client installation package and so on. So, settings here will have an impact on your environment if you want to choose to automatically upgrade and so on. These options are here. Think through them and such, right? Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I will assume that my piloting has completed, that I'm ready to actually move forward to the production version. So I will go back to administration, back to updates and servicing, and now what I will do is just right click as soon as this catches up. Come on. Okay, there it is. So what we need to do now is just simply right click and do the client update options, which will allow us to say, okay, I'm ready to move from one version to another. Hit OK, and then pretty much immediately you will see now in the folder here that we have the latest version of the clients. So this before was 1511 or version 8325. Now it should be 8355, and in fact it is. So that quick, we shifted the client into our production folder and such, right? So that is actually tracked in HMan. So if we go to the logs and look at HMan, then we can actually see just right at the bottom probably that it was moving, and it moved the files from CMU client to just the client folder just that quick, right? Okay. Now, in terms of the console, this already has the console updated. I mentioned this before. One of the challenges is in previous versions is you would upgrade the site, but the console oftentimes was kind of an out of sight, out of mind thing, especially remote consoles, and so people would start to have connectivity issues. Now, with the console, if you have it running and we detect that it's not the right version, we will just prompt and prompt and prompt again to ask you to upgrade the console. Right? In this case, I've already got mine upgraded, not a problem. But that was bugging me before I upgraded it here as well. So you would see it happen to you. So another couple of logs just to call out while we're here. For the admin UI setup, we put a lot of detail in these logs. And then for the site setup, there is the CM update, but there's also the ConfigMgr setup log that has some detail in it too that could be useful in troubleshooting or tracking, type scenarios. All right, and then finally, the site version, we had looked before up here, the About Config Manager, and seen that it was 1511 and 8325, 1602, 8355. Again, validation that that the upgrade actually worked as expected. All right, so let's pull this out and go further. And talk about the hierarchy. So the hierarchy scenario, very similar to what we just did with the standalone primary. Right here, I just adjust things a bit so I have room to add in a couple of child primaries and a secondary. So same logs really are involved. There are a couple of extra, right? So what you see here, yes, DMP downloader still goes out to the web, pulls down the updates, but in this scenario, we will actually copy the updates down to your primary sites. So that's done through the standard site-to-site mechanism. You'll see that in just a minute in Distribution Manager, where we do that. So sender will send it, despooler will uncompress it and put it out where Distribution Manager can work on it, and so on. Right? Another couple of nuances about this. So the content, as we replicate, you'll see on the logs in just a minute, is set to replicate to only the site server. In fact, let me pull up the log so I can just show you that while we're talking. So this is from my hierarchy. Now, the reason that I chose my hierarchy is because I had already moved it forward from 1511 to 1602, right? There's actually a change between 1511 and 1602 in the way that we handle upgrades. So in 1511, let me pull this out just for a minute. If you were installing or upgrading to 1511, you would start in a hierarchy at your CAS, upgrade it, and then go down to each one of your primaries and manually kick off the upgrade on your primaries, then go to your secondary and manually kick off the upgrade on your secondary. That's no longer true in 1602 going forward. In order to illustrate what I'm going to show you in just a minute about how this works now, I needed to actually have an upgrade from 1602 to another version. The hotfix came out, so it was pretty convenient. So I went ahead and kicked off the upgrade to the hotfix to capture these logs that I'm about to show you. Because in 1602, yes, you will initiate the upgrade at the CAS. But then once you initiate the upgrade at the CAS, the system does the rest of the work and will copy those source files locally, make sure they're there, and once they arrive, automatically trigger the upgrade at your primaries. You don't have to do that. The only place that you have to trigger manually after you upgrade the CAS is if you have secondaries, right? So let's tie this all together. Let me pull in the logs. So hierarchy here, I just wanted to show you a couple of things. First, Distribution Manager. So these logs, this particular set of logs, I can roll up to, should be at the first of it. And see, yeah, this one right here, info package 73 is set to replicate to site servers only. This doesn't need to go to distribution points. It just needs to go to the content store on the site servers and the source directories and so on, so that we can manipulate it and use it for upgrades on the site servers. No one else is going to care about this. No one else is going to use it, right? So here we see it replicating through, and we could go to sender log and do some different things. It's doing some cleanup work here, but really just wanted to show you that once the content gets down, right? The CM update log. So this log was on my CAS. This log was on my primary. So once the update gets down there, what I can do is just go into this log, and I will make it easier to look for a minute and search for a line of text. I'll search for content replication. Okay, here, right in front of me. Succeeded, right? So what we're waiting for whenever we want to upgrade a primary site is simply for the content to get there. So here it just says the content replication was successful. It's here. Now we're checking the staging folder, make sure it has the content extracted. If not, we're going to extract it, and then we're going to kick off the upgrade process automatically. I didn't keep much of this log because you've already seen that it's a lot of activity, right? But just wanted to note that. Now, back to the distribution manager log for a minute, just to call your attention. This particular package was package ID 73, right? Well, if I go into my hierarchy, my other lab where I have my hierarchy, let me go pull that up real quick. All right, and so here's my CAS, and I look in my software library and under packages, and kind of sort by package ID here, you'll notice that there is no package 73, right? It's not there. Okay, it goes to 74. The reason for that is because this is kind of a hidden package. Not kind of, it is a hidden package. So if I just run a query against my SMS packages table, you'll see right here, here's 73. It is the easy setup package, so you know it's there. It's in the system being processed, but it's just not visible because it's something the system uses, right? All right. So let's go ahead and close that down and such. Now, so one question that might come to mind is, well, how do I control the upgrade? I don't want the system just to decide when to upgrade things. I want to upgrade them at my own schedule, and that's a great point, right? So if we go to administration and we look at our sites and go to properties on one, we do have the ability to control that. So we can set a service window specifically on a site server. So what this means, just like any service window does, it defines the times that we can do maintenance on that site server. And so if you have defined a maintenance window for tomorrow and you've done the upgrade today, then that upgrade will roll down to the primary. It will see that there's a maintenance window for tomorrow, and it won't do anything until the maintenance window that happens tomorrow, right? So be sure you're aware of this and set this accordingly. Otherwise, you might get unintended changes to your environment. And again, just to call it out, secondaries do need to be upgraded manually, right? Okay, so that really shows that. The last thing as we wrap up that I want to cover is specifically um, specifically some of the troubleshooting scenarios you might think about. This isn't extensive, right? Just a couple of little tidbits that I've seen cause some issues. Certainly, if you're running your service connection point online, you need to make sure that you have internet access, right? If offline, you need to get it from the internet, use that tool to get it from the internet and pipe it in manually. So ensure that the access requirements that we have are handled in your firewall. So back here, just to show, this is the list of required internet access settings based on different kinds of content, right? So make sure those are available. Otherwise, we'll be blocked, right? And if you do have challenges, the service connection point is something you can locate separately from the site server. It does need to have network connectivity to the site server, but if there's a location where you can put it that allows internet access and also allows access to your site server, that could solve any kind of problem. Last thing, probably the key issue that I've seen when upgrading relates to download issues. And so if you do see that the site is just kind of stuck in downloading for a long time, a couple of ways to resolve that I found pretty completely resolve issues with it. Just restart the executive. Sounds pretty simple. Kind of reset some things, gets it started again, checking some things, and works pretty consistently. If that doesn't work, reinstalling the service connection point is the next step, and I've seen that work where restarting the executive did not, right? So that's really it. Just wanted to walk through end to end kind of how the upgrade process works, and especially since we'll be doing this a lot in ConfigMgr. So we will wrap the session there, and I will see you next